computer. All right, so super excited today. I have Mr. Thomas Gibson with Med Global Group. And Thomas, we were able to talk a little bit in the last week or so, last week or two, about Med Global Group. I actually got information on your company. I want to say it was about 60 or 90 days ago, and got signed up and basically now getting some stuff set up with your company and what you do. So with that being said, why don't you go ahead and give us an overview of Med Global Group, what you guys do, and kind of some of the areas of expertise that you pursue.
Okay, well, Sean, thank you very much for speaking with me and spending the time with me. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to pick up where we left off before and talk about Med Global Group and our new approach to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So Med Global Group is certainly not new to the medical industry marketplace. We've been in the marketplace in Latin America since 2015. We were under a different name at that time, which was Ventus Medicus, which is our parent company. We've grown significantly, over the past years. And in 2020, we decided that it was time for us to launch globally. And for several reasons. One is because of the emerging market in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out of the global emerging market, Latin America accounts for about 20 to 25% of the emerging market, which is quite large.
Mm-hmm.
We know this year in used medical equipment alone, the industry is supposed to grow to $32 billion.
Wow.
So we can see that there's a lot of space for us to grow in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do with Med Global Group, and I think it's obvious, we're a medical equipment products and services marketplace. So we
Mm-hmm.
allow sellers to office their goods and services to buyers in the market from around the world. So in 2020, we decided to relaunch and rebrand as an international company. So we wanted to do things a little bit differently. And how we decided to do this was through focus groups and interviews with key distributors and manufacturers from the United States and Latin America, because we know that there's an integration here, and there's an integration that could grow much more.
Mm-hmm.
So our role is we wanted to do things slightly differently. We put together first a development team, because if we were going to compete in this technology market, we can't be using platforms or relying on others. We want to be in the forefront of creating technology
Mm-hmm.
that's going to help the industry,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be able to provide us analytics and metrics and feedback so that we can continue changing our platforms to meet the needs of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something new that I don't know if any other platform in the medical industry is doing right now. Mm-hmm. We want to work together with our clients to help us drive the future of Med Global Group. We don't want to be the inventors of the industry. We feel that the distributors, the manufacturers, and other aspects of the organization should really be the ones advising us and driving us to grow our platforms.
Right.
What our specialty is, besides our experience in the industry, is that we want to be able to use technology to help us facilitate better lead generation, better sales, better connections, more quality platforms that provide better graphics, imageries, new ways that we can deliver products to the market. And that's only half of what we're trying to do here.
Right.
One of the valuable parts that we want to do is to be able to, I always like to say that no piece of medical equipment should ever sit in a warehouse or a shelf being unused when there's a patient around the world that clinic or that office just does not have the leverage to get that equipment. And we have to help facilitate that. We have to find better ways to move this equipment around the world.
Right. So a few things that I want to hit on because you're covering a lot of really important ground right now. And the first thing is just addressing the fact that we're in the States, we're based in the States, but you have really taken an active approach on marketing medical equipment companies into Latin America, networking with manufacturers and places down there. So one of the core benefits and core values that you're really offering for medical equipment companies is to get exposure into those Latin American markets. That's correct?
It's more than just getting exposure. It's
Yes.
using technology,
Yes.
analytics. I like, there's a term in the industry that's used for print magazines. It used to be called spray and pray. Okay, so you used to take a fire hose and spray print magazines all over the place, and you pray that people pick it up and read it. So you're very limited on what the analytics that you can receive on. In fact, there's metrics that they use that today really don't meet the standards of how we can develop analytics.
Right.
So what we like to do, and we're already working with clients on this, is that we use a very targeted approach to do our marketing and doing our sales. So number one, analytics is our friend. So if something's not working right, we need to fix it and see why it's not working. So we have the tools to look in the background and to see where are people scrolling to, where are they stopping to,
Right.
where are they clicking on? Maybe things are in the wrong position.
Right.
People that use platforms or companies that build on other platforms, they don't always have this flexibility like we do.
Right.
So we're constantly looking at our site, looking at the analytics, looking at how we can improve. Same thing with our clients, even down to our individual listings. We have algorithms through our platforms that measure the quality of listings.
Right.
Because after over time, if listing quality starts to decline, then the overall performance of the site will start to decline.
Right. So, and I appreciate that detail. I was trying to be very general, but you're right. You guys do a lot, but just to surmise, like you're doing a lot to really help companies like iMedical, which was, kind of where I'm from and still sort of am there. But if I'm a guy in a medical industry here in the States and I'm going, we really need to get better exposure into the Latin American markets, Thomas, me and you are going to be good friends. Is that right?
Absolutely. And it's more than just the Latin market.
Oh, I get that. I do
right.
get
We're
that.
growing, right now, because we started in the Latin market, that's our most deliverable product to the world.
Right.
We're strategically moving region by region. And I think maybe you and I spoke about this before. Our second region that we'd like to move into is Africa, because we feel that's the next emerging market that's going to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
No, we're 100%.
We want to do things differently, but we don't want to do it by saying that our next region is going to be, Africa or Asia or Europe. Our next market is going to be based on analytics, based upon metrics, based upon KPIs, using the data that's available. Right. We're not finished building our platform. So
no, it's always a work in progress. But the beauty is for you specifically, and because I'm a marketing guy, and that's why I really have a lot of that's why I'm actually really excited about this call, because I love what you're doing. Number one, I love the level of detail that you're going into. I love the fact that you're addressing niche markets that like that you made a key statement, which I'm going to just repeat. We don't want any medical equipment basically going in landfills. We want to find it a home. And I will tell you, being in the medical industry on the other side of the fence, there's hundreds of companies that are saying, yes, Thomas, you're absolutely right. We've got a lot of equipment in our warehouse and we want to find a home for it. And so Med Global Group is really providing a great platform, and not just for Latin America, but I know, and I'm going to talk to you about some stuff here as we go, but I know that Latin America is, number one, is, as you've identified, a very fast growing market. But the other thing about Latin America right now also is that it's still an easy place to get shipping to. So whether it's containers or trucks going into Mexico or whatever it might be, you still have a pretty good lock and a pretty good logistics system set up to get equipment in and out of Latin America. And so that also sort of plays into it as we start seeing things going on with shipping routes. And because I'm, kind of still in that part of it, I know that getting containers into different parts of Africa right now is becoming a little more challenging. I know price-wise, it's becoming more expensive. So from a feasibility standpoint, you really have to get as much value into a 40-foot container as possible to really make it pay off. But but there's a lot of companies here in the States that are looking for places that basically for distribution to get those products in those emerging markets and those existing markets. And the Med Global Group platform, as we've spoken, is a fantastic place to really start that process to get business coming in, not just domestically, because you're obviously doing a great job domestically, but also to get across some of those border lines and get products into some of these emerging markets.
Yeah, and Sean, you bring up a very, very valuable topic here is logistics, because we know how difficult they could be right now as our site continues to populate. So what you see on Med Global now, a good portion of our listings haven't been activated yet because we've upped our quality of our site. So the 15,000 listings that were on our Ventus Medica's previous site have been moved over, but now we require all the owners of those listings to review them and update them, because now we require a warranty and we require policies and we require a better picture. So there's a lot of things that we could do now, but as Med Global continues to populate, we're actually working. So we have a shipping API, and we could provide, if anybody wants to buy online and they want to get options for shipping and logistics, they can do that up to a less than load or a full load.
That is huge. That is huge. Having that is huge. You told me about that the last time we spoke, and I thought, these are the types of extra services and the extra things that you guys are doing, thinking, I don't want to say outside the box, but outside the box, because that's not your traditional list your equipment and sell it online. That's really going to the next step and enabling the process to be completed and following through on that process, because that is a sticking point, not just for the end users buying it, but for the medical companies that are shipping it. And having that set up and being able to calculate that and assist with that is a huge benefit for for people with Med Global website and using that platform.
Exactly, and we're trying to take this one step even further. So there's two sides that we're working on here. There's the equipment side and there's a parts side. We would like to facilitate, obviously, shipping equipment over, but also supporting with parts. We're working with local shipping companies that have solid, positive relationships with aduana or customs in Latin American countries, that we can do more just-in-time shipping for smaller parts, like parts. There's thousands of parts out there. One thing I like to tell people, especially our buyers in Latin America, before they buy, think about where you're going to get parts after you buy. So you might be able to buy a brand new, shiny, beautiful piece of equipment from Asia or somewhere in that part of the world, but it may not be as easy to get parts. So we're trying to facilitate a very inexpensive fixed price for shipping of small parts up to a certain weight, say 5, 10, or 15 pounds, and provide options where the consumer knows that it's only going to cost me $10 to receive this, and I'll get this in 2 days.
That is huge. Yeah.
So these are the things that we're working on. We only just need to continue increasing the volume so that we can force the shipping companies to lower their prices.
Yeah.
This is where I go back and saying we cannot do this without working together with our sellers.
Yes.
So we are fully committed to be working side by side and having our sellers as our advisory board to show us how to make the direction of our site and create our future.
Yeah.
What analytics are important to our sellers, what information is important. We have client partners that you know, when you work with Med Global Group, you don't call a sales department. You're going to call a client partner who has a name, who's designated to you and knows your account. That client partner, as bold as it might be, may call you someday and may tell you, we have to improve your listings.
Which is
Because
a good
looking
thing.
at your statistics, you're
Yeah.
not getting the statistics you're supposed to get. And these are the reasons why. Now, of course, the seller always has the right to do what they want to do, but we're all about quality, safety, experience. And the experience doesn't just lie on our side. The experience is the consumer experience. The experience is the seller's experience.
Right.
All of these things make a difference in this industry.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you're really focusing on good quality images, that you're focusing on warranties. Now, as a guy that's done a lot of international business, I will tell you that that is a bold move. I like it, but there's some things that you're going to deal with that might be something that might happen possibly through the shipping process. It might not necessarily be something that is you know, the result of the product going out. It might have gone out in great shape, but by the time it got there, you know, there's a chance or a possibility that maybe something shifted during shipping and maybe there was damage caused through the shipping process and not necessarily from the, you know, from the medical company. And, you know, like, where would you go with something like that? I mean, first of all, I love the fact that you're doing that, because when people are spending money and they're sending it overseas to people they don't know, there's a lot of anxiety, and rightfully so, to send a lot of money, depending on what they're doing. But sometimes this stuff gets really expensive to people that they have not had the privilege of meeting or the, you know, the opportunity. And so taking on that role and responsibility to make sure that people are following through and sending good quality stuff is a big deal. And that honestly gets into a lot of issues that have been caused, you know, maybe over the last 5 or 10 years, where, you know, companies were just basically pulling stuff out of a hospital, throwing it on a skid and shipping it. And then it's getting over to these locations and you're finding out that in fact it doesn't work. Or you have a blood pressure monitor, like you said, that's missing a blood pressure cuff. Now what? And so I can see now that you've really started digging deep in this, and you're seeing all those issues that have been caused, but you're really coming in and addressing those. And I love the fact that you're doing that. And that's a big responsibility, but it really helps that end user in those Latin American countries or Africa. It really gives them a sense of security to know that you're kind of there to, you know, kind of manage things and make sure that they're getting what they're paying for. So, you know, where do you kind of go with that if you do have issues? I mean, I'm sure it's probably on a case-by-case basis and you can figure that out, but.
Well, first of all, we try to be proactive in the front end, which I think helps us a lot. So when someone does, even before somebody buys something, we're continually providing education to not only our sellers and our buyers, but especially our buyers.
Yeah.
So whenever someone's going to be expecting a delivery, they'll also get an email. So they get an email all along the way. Your product's been shipped. Your product's, here's what your product is. Your product is delayed. Your product will be delivered now. Similar to what other marketplaces might do. But we also teach people at the same time, before a shipment receives them, we actually tell them how to open the package. We tell them, if the package is damaged, don't accept the package, refuse the package, because that's your first defense. If you open it and you see that there's something damaged, take a picture of it immediately. Don't wait 3 days. Don't wait a week. Honestly, Sean, most of the stress that happens within a transaction usually is the fault of a person that just doesn't follow a standard protocol.
That's it.
It's usually, you know, instead of calling the seller or contacting us immediately and say, I didn't get what I ordered, so that we can come in and help arbitrate the situation and figure out a solution to it. Sometimes these things go on for weeks before we're notified, and that doesn't help us solve the problem. We'll do our best, but we try to be proactive in the front. We do a lot of communication. One of the, I think I explained to you this before, is we use a couple of tools for safety. One is a proprietary tool that that we've developed, and it's called the MGG score, the Med Global Group score. And that's a special algorithm. Part of the algorithm is public to the sellers and to the buyers, but a portion of the algorithm is hidden within the code. So,
so
we,
it sort of gives a rating on that particular company, so you can see that they very much, but that's really good, because that establishes a track record, and obviously you're going to start flagging companies if you start seeing that they're misrepresenting or sending stuff that's not, that's not in good working order, because certainly that's not good for anybody.
No. We measure things like response time, the messages, we measure quality of ad listings, we measure the quality of content that they put into the program, into their listings. We even measure the quality of their pictures or their graphics.
Wow.
So, and we're working on better tools. We're constantly improving our website. I always like to say that we have a MVP, a minimal viable product, but every day we're adding more tools to this site. We're not done. We're eventually building a data lake so that we can provide our users really viable data to help them sell. And this is, we're not looking to make money from this. This is a team effort. As the industry continues to grow, if iMedical continues to grow, then they're going to grow with us, and we're going to grow with them.
Right.
So this is the approach that we're taking. We have something we call the MGG focus, and our focus is on clients, and that's really the thing that matters to us. And we have this vision of building a site that eventually will become the industry site. It's not going to become Med Global site. It's going to be heavily influenced by iMedical and other major players in the industry. Just in the beginning of this week, we had a client that asked us to modify some listings so that they could start putting expiration dates and serial numbers onto implants and surgical supplies. No problem. No problem. Yeah, this is because we're agile and we could do things like this. It's completely different. It's new in the industry. You very rarely will you hear the word no from our mouth.
Right. Well, so I'm so glad we're talking. And honestly, I get so excited because I have a background in marketing and definitely on the internet stuff. And you're taking this. You're taking technology that's 2022 technology, that's the most current state-of-the-art stuff, and really using it to expand into bringing the industry to a whole nother level. But I think the thing that's also important to note is that you're way more than just an internet website that's getting products and stuff out to the end users. All these other services with the shipping and with tracking scores for the vendors to make sure they're doing things, and to try to mitigate and have some types of guarantees or warranties on the products. And getting involved at that level is way more than just posting your stuff on a website. So I have to really I have to give you a lot of credit for that, because you really understand clearly what the challenges are with international customers, international business, and you're going in and addressing those. And that's a win-win for the companies in the States to know that they have a platform, like I was saying earlier, that they can get into international markets, and then also set a bar for those companies to say, look, we can help you do this, but if you come on board, here are some things that you're going to have to make sure that you do in order to make this a space that's good for everybody. And then that gets away from some of the past experiences that might have happened, before these types of standards were set, like when I was talking earlier, where stuff's just coming out of a hospital and just going right off a truck and right into a container, and nobody's really taking the time to test it, evaluate it, and do all that. And so I really have a lot of respect for what you're doing right now, because that is really a part of the industry that we really need right now to help everybody, to help the people in these countries get the equipment that they need for higher levels of patient care, but also for the companies that are here in the States that are getting a lot of really good equipment and looking for other places where they can, get it distributed to.
Exactly. And you made a comment just a second ago that Med Global is the site for everyone. And I would love to just elaborate that. And that's an absolute truth. Thank you very much for saying that, because we're for the local distributor who only wants to sell within his own country, or we're for the distributor who wants to sell in 135 countries. You can, when you set your listings, you can set it to sell just in your own country. You can set it to sell in 3 countries, or you can set it to sell globally. It's your decision of how you want to sell. But we wanted to give the ability to a small distributor as well to a large distributor. And because we are the developers and designers, it allows us to do things, of course, at a less of a cost, and we pass that savings on to our users. But what we also do is we don't no longer have to charge extra fees to put you, like and I know we haven't talked about it yet, but we also publish a digital magazine. Good. And it's a true interactive digital magazine. It's not a PDF put into a website. But if you're on the website and you're a seller and subscribing to the website, well, you also have a presence in our magazine. You don't have to pay for that. And our magazine is searchable through the internet. It has SEO optimization. We do things, again, like no one else can do in the marketplace at this time. So we don't keep adding additional costs onto people. Like when you post an article in our magazine, since our magazine doesn't really have a page to it, we don't charge you for the number of words or the number of content you put in there. Whatever you choose to put in that content's up to you. Now, we'll make recommendations because people can only read for so long, right? Or they're going to leave. But we have very few limitations of what we can do for our clients, and that's, we're so dedicated to this project and so dedicated to helping the industry that it's very important to us to see that we can meet all the leverage capabilities of product buyers and equipment buyers globally. Yeah. And that's some of the messages that we're starting to deliver through Insights Magazine, is helping, especially US is probably the heaviest continent, that's the heaviest country sending products worldwide. Right. Helping the United States understand the challenges in different parts of the world and educating sellers how we can better service you and how they could better be prepared for the future. But we can only do that by working together. Yeah. And I know, because with iMedical, we do a lot of international, a ton actually. And I know that when it comes to dealing with hospitals or we're dealing with different accounts, everything's going to be standardized. So if we're dealing with the hospital and it's, they need a lot of stuff, everything's going to be GE per se. And so the biomed staff will say, okay, on these monitors, this might be a key thing that you want to have some extras, and extras are already going to be thrown in. When we do things, because we obviously sell a lot of hospital beds, if they need 100 hospital beds, we're probably going to send them 104. Now you can get 50 stood up, but you can lay down 2 on the floor. And so we're doing that because it's actually cheaper to just get a couple beds and have every part you need than to, in some cases, send the extra parts. And as with any hospital, if you have an issue with the bed, okay, pull that one out, bring the new one in. So you have a couple backups. You're already sort of prepared for something to happen and have that in place, and then have parts units and things already sort of brought into the initial algorithm so that anything that they're buying, you're already adding a little bit more on top of it with parts or extra units or whatever it might be, just to address any of those concerns, and then actually not even get to a point where stuff would need to be shipped because you're already assuming that there could be an issue coming down the road. And then also the other thing that I think that we get into that, and not just us, but everybody, product training, right? And giving them some basic information on how the products are going to be done. Sometimes that can be done through video, sometimes it can be done through Zoom, but many times it's going to be done by just flying on site, going to location and spending a couple days there. In addition to installation for different types of things, especially obviously when you're getting into imaging stuff and you've got a CT or some really heavy duty equipment, you're gonna probably just end up
getting that whole part sort of bundled in. So with the international stuff, there's certain things that you're going to just kind of plan ahead for and just say, look, we know that this might be an issue coming down the road, but we're going to address it before it becomes an issue, and already sort of buffer that into the actual shipment so that you're really developing a good, a good game plan for long term.
Well, I think you're reading my mind, but
it's actually scripted right across the top of the screen. Here's what Thomas is thinking.
It's breaking news.
Exactly,
But we're one of our future projects that we're working on is exactly what you're saying. So say like iMedical, obviously you have different categories that you specialize in, was patient monitors and beds and surgical equipment, but allowing on your web store in Med Global, we're building an additional educational platform for each of the vendors that are on the site. So if you want to put educational videos up there to say, hey, this is how you run our GE Volusign 730 ultrasound, here's some educational tips. Most people are kind of shy. They don't want to waste the time calling you up. They might want to just go back to the website, play the video again, and they might find their answer. Yeah. But also if they do call you up and they ask you a question, that's going to prompt you to say, hey, I better build on my video. I better build on my education for that. But that gives you back more time to deal with your lead generations and deal more time with your own clients than to have to spend time on the phone answering a question that maybe your client could find himself.
Right.
Yep. So we're trying to build these things that are useful to everyone.
Right. And I would say doing international, no matter what it is, the biggest thing I would say is 110 to 220 and making sure that you've got converters, you've got stuff to convert the different electrical and all the other, because that's another thing, obviously, that's going to be something that'll be addressed at some point. I know, sometimes that's taken for granted and people don't realize it, and then stuff gets plugged in and all of a sudden you've just fried a motherboard, and now you're dealing with those minor things. But with somebody like yourself having that expertise and actually putting out things like a checklist to say, here are things now to review to make sure that this is all being done, so that you're getting the training, you're getting, the other thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned earlier, which I think is huge, it's actually way understated, and I'm relating to the company, obviously iMedical, but the platform, this is actually for everybody. And, there's a lot of other companies too that, obviously always Avante and ZRG and Gumbo and just all these other companies. But I think the biggest thing also for me that I've seen over the years, and especially in the last year or two, is communication. And that communication with, saying, hey, your product is shipped, here's the dates that it's going out, and setting up those shipping dates. Now, obviously with containers, it's different because that's going to be something that everybody's going to be in the loop for. And obviously when you're loading containers, staff and everything, but when you're doing LCL stuff, which is just, a pallet or two or three, recording, say, hey, your package is marked for pickup on Tuesday, and then Wednesday your package was picked up, and here's your tracking number, and all those things that just keep those people that have spent that money in their comfort zone. And that's not just international, actually, that's domestic as well. And I know with our company, with iMedical, that's something that I really see as, because Amazon has really set the bar for that. Amazon has set the bar, your order's been shipped, your order's going out, here's your tracking, and now that's becoming a standard. And in the medical industry, and very much so with the international, because there is so much anxiety sending money to a company that's far, far away, that really, you hitting on that point, I think also is a very important point for not just getting an order out, but getting repeat business and getting people to come back to a platform and say, I had a really good experience with this. They kept me in the loop, and that whole thing was done. And now you're building that comfort zone, and now you're basically bringing return business to all these companies here in the States.
Yes. And we're going to continue refining that, but we feel that the only way that we'll reach our goals is with working together with clients like iMedical and the larger clients from the United States that have been doing this for years. Number one, have a different side of the industry knowledge that we need to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's been lost over the years. Number one, customer service has to be one of the most stressful experiences that people have to endure now. And we don't want to have that in this industry, because healthcare should not be stressful.
Right.
Health is already stressful. So
trust me, we're going to have videos on the medical industry. Everybody thinks that the medical industry is this romantic. And I can tell you that, man, when you're, and even though I'm talking to iMedical and I'm technically sort of connected, but I technically now have left and started this whole new platform, which is Healthcare Direct. So I still intermingle with iMedical, but I really have separated to launch this, because we really felt it was important that that we had another platform, basically to integrate social media. So a lot of it is really calls like this, where I can get to meet a person like yourself. Like, we can sit down and really talk, and I can learn a lot about the platform. I can learn a lot about you as a person, and I can really get a good idea, what the thought process is that's going into this company, which is way more than you would ever get by looking at a website. So, so with that being said, I think that, this is kind of why we're doing this. Even though I have a lot of experience from, being in the industry and most recently with iMedical, I bring that up just because I can reference and sort of have an understanding of kind of what's involved in some of these projects. Now, we've talked a lot of really good stuff, but now I have to throw a wild card at you, because you keep talking analytics, and it's like, all right, Thomas, we're getting off the script. You've got all this data, you've got all this information. Let's talk about things that you're seeing from an analytics standpoint that you would think would be really cool for us to know. Maybe we could start with, what do you think are maybe the top 5 products that you see getting requests for, or any type of other analytical data that you're looking at that would be of interest for companies out there selling equipment into these different foreign markets?
Well, first of all, I would, this probably not the direct answer you're probably wanting right away, but I'm going to always recommend that whenever someone sells a piece of portable equipment, especially like an ultrasound or a C-arm or something into Latin America, somehow, some way convince the buyer to buy a power supply to protect the equipment, because
or bundle it in with the sale.
That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't want to frighten anybody away.
Yeah, but that's really what you should do, because you've got to see, here's the thing I'm learning, and like with anything, this is always a work in progress. We have much better access to getting that stuff here in the States than they do in a lot of these countries where this stuff is going to. And the other thing of it is that you've got to match that converter and that power supply with the amount of output that thing's going to throw out. So just getting one isn't enough. You've got to know, and honestly, let's say it's 1,000 watt, whatever it might be, you would want to get 1,500 watt. You wouldn't want to take the cheap way out to just get something that'll cover it. And so bundling that in and getting that done. So many times we would do that ourselves and say, we're going to do it. We're going to drop ship it all. It'll go to our warehouse and it goes in the container. But I think you're right. Let's start first with just some really useful advice on how to do the process and things to look at. But that's a fantastic one, is basically
reduce your risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reduce your risk, because when something happens, if there's because we all know the stability of the power in Latin America, even the stability of power in the United States is having some issues right now with the heat wave.
Yeah.
So, having something blow up on day one and having the unknown why it blew up, it puts everybody in a bad situation. Yeah. and it loses you a client and yeah. It gives you a bad rating, and we don't want to see that happen out there.
Right. And it's really, it's not really anybody's, it's hard to put a finger on it. It's like, technically, I mean, if you just take control of the situation, you're preventing something from happening. You're taking out all those variables on how something could go sideways by just being proactive, getting it done up front, and just assuming that you're going to have to incorporate that. And that could actually be done where you're pricing out the item itself and then saying you're going to need this power supply and that's going to be added on, but just understanding that, but just saying you're going to need it and we're going to do it on our end and not let anything go sideways, because if it does go sideways, it's very hard to put the finger on exactly whose fault it was. And you don't even want to go there anyway, because nobody wins. It's a mess. It's just, so to just take that whole situation out from happening, that is an excellent point. I'm really glad you brought that up.
And, you know, one thing we have to remember about Latin America, so there's about approximately 100,000 hospitals in the world. 20% of them sit in Latin America. It's a pretty good number. I think there's close to 20 million beds altogether. But the average hospital size is 15 to 20 beds, which means that their patient throughput doesn't give them the leverage to finance equipment or buy expensive equipment. And if they don't have the infrastructure for modern equipment. So finding creative ways to meet the needs of these people is where we all have to work together.
Yeah.
We have to find equipment that's suitable for their location and for their financial needs. Now, we are working with finance companies. We're working with escrow companies, microfinancing to help new ways till we can finance these things for people. But number one is to find, you know, we have to, that's where we come in, is finding what's best for the region for our clients. And we'll try to help them direct what, you know, what fits in that region, what price ranges they're looking for, because we're going to have to be flexible if we want to move equipment.
Yeah.
So just like I try to tell CFOs, okay, depreciation helps nobody.
Right.
A piece of equipment sitting on a shelf helps no one.
Right.
So we all have to kind of be in this together to be flexible in our pricing. We're trying to keep our prices low so that we can help the industry itself. Second thing I would always want to tell people is that we need to support our products with parts. So that helps people feel a little warm and fuzzy when they're buying a piece of equipment, knowing that parts are available. Med Global Group is now working on a program with local biomedical engineers or the biomedical societies for each country in Latin America, so that we can find sources for repairs for all of these, for all the equipment that comes down there. That's a question that came up from another client. I want to start selling into Latin America, but if my equipment breaks, I don't want my client to be unhappy because we can't give them a service option.
Right. That's
so
huge.
we're trying to fill this 360 circle, but
That's
these
huge.
are ideas that came from the industry. I
Yeah.
can't take claim for these.
Yeah, well, that actually is a great point, because in addition to sort of being a shipping concierge, when you start networking out biomedical companies in various zones and areas, and you have at least a reference point where you've got a third party that you know is available, that has some area of expertise, that can get to an area, whether it's an hour or 2 or 3 hours away. And in some of these areas, even a day's drive is not that bad if you know you can get somebody down there that knows what they're doing. And to go back to your other point with the ultrasounds and some of that other equipment, especially with people that are trying to do depreciation, in this industry, we know how stuff can pile up. Now that you're getting into these portable ultrasounds and you're getting into all these massive consoles that, you know, that were made that still have a lot of life in them, they are starting to mount up. So even though in your mind, and it might have a perceived value and you know what you paid for it, the reality is, in the world of supply and demand on what's sitting in warehouses right now that's coming out in mass quantity, you know, there's a whole nother reality there. And you see that a lot, but the medical companies will always have a good pulse on that, because obviously we know, and it could be something as simple as an infusion pump, where an infusion pump is worth $1,000, and then 10 hospital chains are switching out that same model with something new, and now you flooded the market with 5,000 of them, and you couldn't give them away if you wanted to. I mean, theoretically, you'd still sell them and they'd be worth money, but the price now has fluctuated. So, you know, there's always that ebb and flow of those types of, you know, things that you address as well when you're looking at, you know, the value of the equipment and, you know, trying to find places to get all that surplus equipment distributed to where it still has a lot of life, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. A lot of this stuff is coming out but it's being made in a way where it's going to last 20 years and it's only been used for 8 or 10.
And that's where an advisory board really comes in to help facilitate the industry,
Mhm.
help promote the website and promote selling of equipment. So if through the advisory board, we're seeing an increase, and I could tell you from the website, we're seeing an increase in listing on Alaris pumps.
Mhm.
So we know that the market's getting flooded with these. Well, we're never going to sell them if the supply is higher than the demand. Is this, I mean, it's kind of logic. So then something has to be done to break that cycle.
Right.
So either we need to agree as a group to say we need to lower our pricing on the pumps because they're just going to sit on the website, or find other creative ways. This is where working together, I think that's never been done in the industry like this, changes how we do things in the industry. So you know what, maybe you as iMedical just didn't buy that next lot of pumps, but if you had the insights that pumps weren't the right thing to buy, you might think twice before you buy them.
Yeah.
You might leave it where they are for now, or we might find another creative way to move those pumps.
Right.
Maybe through donations. We're also a social responsible company. We also have a foundation ourselves here in Mexico that part of our profits go to and supports. So, there's very creative ways that we work together, because if that inventory is taking up valuable space in your warehouse, well, that's costing you money too.
Right.
And it may sit there forever.
Right. And in some cases, when you're dealing with the hospitals and you're buying the equipment, you're basically helping assess what actual fair market value is. And fair market value is an ebb and flow. So, like you couldn't get an Alaris pump during COVID, but once COVID sort of died off, now all these pumps hit the market again. The same thing with ventilators, the same thing with a lot of this stuff, especially PPE and a lot of this stuff, where there was a time where it had a very high value because of the demand, but now it's coming out. It's like, we need to be honest, and we need to look at this and say, look, this equipment has served its purpose. There's a massive surplus, and we need to drop the pricing, move this and get it into the hands of people now where it's more affordable. And I think you made a really good point, and one that I wasn't familiar with, although you did tell me this last week when we spoke. So I did have a cheat sheet. The average, so first off, let's just go back over and just make sure I'm correct. There's about 20 million patient beds in Latin America.
I believe that's the count.
Or ballpark, just somewhere around there.
Yes.
But the average hospital is 12 to 15 beds, 12 to 14, somewhere.
Private hospital.
Private hospitals, right.
Private hospital.
Right.
Average public hospital is 100 beds.
Right.
Now that fluctuates, obviously. There's Chile is a first world country. So the average average bed size for a hospital in Chile is about 136 beds. And believe it or not, the average bed size in the US is 160.
Okay.
So that many people who live in an urban or a metropolitan area may not even believe that.
Yeah,
exactly. They're used to seeing 500. I worked at an 800 bed hospital at one time. But the average bed size is 160.
160, yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you see Med Global going then, and let's just say in the next 12 to 24 months? Now you've got a lot going on. We're going to do another call because we can't get all this information in one. So this is going to be an ongoing thing, because I want to definitely, keep talking about this, and there's a lot more information. But where do you see Med Global Group going in the next, say, 12 to 18 months right now?
Well, our goals is to continue growing. We want to reevaluate our pricing, number one, because I think that we have room to bring our pricing down, believe it or not. We want to better serve the industry. We want to, I'm not going to lie to you, we would like to be the leader in the industry. And that's our goal. And we think that by using the experience that we have, combining it with the experience of our clients that we work with, especially our key clients that carry a lot of knowledge in the industry, combined with our technology that we can develop, and we're continually developing new technology, new architecture within our website, within our other platforms. We're an SEO optimization machine. We use social media on a heavy basis. And our goal is to be the number one platform serving this industry on an international basis. but at the same time, not losing that customer service focus, because that's what's
Mhm.
really important to us.
It is.
I recently, within the past 2 years, had a horrible customer experience with a very large international company that should never happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I vowed that that would
Yeah.
never, ever, ever happen with us.
I mean, I will tell you, me and you think exactly the same, because your company is only as good as your customer service. And if that is not rock solid, you are you're deep in the weeds, and you are probably not going to get out of it, because as good as every other thing can be, I mean, here's basically my quick pitch. Anytime I go to Target, anytime I go to Home Depot, anytime I go to any major manufacturer, and these guys are all selling brand new stuff, the very first thing I see when I come in that store is the customer service department. And you have people coming back, bringing brand new stuff that they bought brand new in the box and returning it. But even the biggest, smartest companies, or the biggest, largest retailers, know it's part of the business. And what do? They have friendly, happy people right there. They don't care what the story is. If you want to bring it back, they're going to bring it back. They're going to get it done. And they know that that is super important. And if they know that, and they're addressing that concern, and that's how they deal with it, then every medical equipment company should step up and understand that that is just part of the business. Now, when you're getting into selling stuff that's recertified, now you might even go from a 3%, return rate to a 5 or 6. So what? It's part of the industry. It's normal. It's going to happen. Address it and make sure you've got very well trained people, and that's a very specific personality type, and that's a very specific skill set that you need to have to be in that department. But you make an absolutely fantastic point where, customer service and those types of experiences, that's the very first thing. If that's not getting done right, it's an absolute disaster.
Exactly. And, we have to, if we're not like, I'll tell you an experience from a recent competitor that someone told us that they called the company and asked for help. And their answer to them was, everything you need to know is on the website. And then the customers was very dissatisfied with that, very dissatisfied. You mentioned like return rates. These are things as a group, and I'm going to call us as a team, us working together, we should be looking at. If we get together and meet at a conference like FIME or RSNA, say twice a year, we get to meet and we say, our return rates are 7%. What do you think that we can do to reduce those return rates? These are the solutions that we should be looking at together and tackle these together. We're the side that can change our platform. We can redevelop the platform. We can redo some of the things we do, but I don't think that we should be doing them unless we have some insight, some feedback, some knowledge from the experts in the industry like yourself, iMedica, ZRG, and other companies that are out. We should never be going off on our own, because these are the ones that are driving the industry. These are the ones.
Exactly. And so
things that I could never learn on my own.
Exactly. And, our industry is a little different. So maybe the return rate, is because we're not, but it really gets back to your main thing. The main point you're making is good customer service, and making sure that you're there for the customer and you're giving them a good experience, and you're addressing the questions, and you've got that part of it handled. Because like what you were saying initially that kind of got me off on that was, it was actually a major company that you had a negative experience with, that on many different levels might have been doing a phenomenal job, but then you got to that one part and that sort of soured the entire experience. No matter how many things got done right, when there was one little wrinkle or something that went a little sideways, you couldn't get that taken care of. And so I think for every company that's out there, that's really something that everybody needs to take a real close look at. And honestly, test your own company, send calls in and say, hey, I want to know what the experience is going to be like if I call, and not just, you have to take a very active approach to that. And, that's a really good point that you bring up talking about that.
We have a verified vendor program like other platforms have. We have a way of, we have a little more extensive research process into it before we verify a vendor. But we also don't be surprised if we will call a customer and ask them about their experience, because that's really important to us. Quality is always the first thing on our site.
Yeah.
And if, you know, we don't talk about blacklisting people and doing this. Our first goal is to help somebody rise up.
Yeah.
And be a better seller on the site. And that comes from an individual small business up to a conglomerate. Our goal is to tell you by the analytics we're collecting, even though a lot of them are visible to you. But when we dig into our warehouse of data, we want to use that data and we want to be able to help our clients do better on the website.
Right. So Thomas, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I'm super excited that we were able to do this call. And like I said, we're going to do more calls in the future because we're really hitting on some key points here in the industry. So what would be, let's start first with the web address for Med Global Group.
It's very simple, medglobalgroup.com.
Medglobalgroup.com. And I think what we're going to do, or what I'd like to do, is maybe figure out some type of special that we could get people onto the site. And maybe we could say, look, if you mention seeing Thomas talk about Med Global Group on Healthcare Direct USA, that we can help you with maybe some preferential treatment of some kind. We can think about that later.
I will. Anybody who would like to come on to the website, I will give them a trial onto the subscription package that they think it's best for them, and we'll help them move it around, get started, set up their store. And another thing I wanted to mention is that Insights, which is our digital magazine, we're going to be at the Florida International Medical Expo. And I'm not sure if you're going to be there, because I'd love to meet with you.
Yeah,
maybe we can do something there together.
We absolutely should.
Yeah, because what we want to do is, so we're media partners with FEMA, and so that's one of our larger, and we're working with the RSNA right now. But we want to do a special edition inside our Insights magazine for FEMA, and so we want to target some of our clients and do some videos and showcasing and put them in our magazine.
That's awesome.
I would love to have you aboard on that. I'd love to do an interview with you. All this stuff we can put in the magazine.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff, and we can get more people chiming in as well. I know I've got a lot of the big companies that I mentioned earlier. I know Brad from Tenacore. A lot of these people are planning on becoming more active and getting on the channel, so we get more feedback from more companies. But I will be at FIME next week, and we'll talk about it after we get off the call. But I'll definitely come visit you, and we'll definitely do something while I'm out there.
Well, I've got a great idea for something I'd love to discuss. Would love to discuss it with you.
Okay, that sounds good. Thomas Gibson, medglobalgroup.com. Go to the website, medglobalgroup.com. Thomas, sir, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. I'm looking forward to getting together soon, and we'll have another great discussion.
Thank you, Sean, and I really appreciate your time.
You take care. Have a good afternoon. We'll talk again soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Did I turn this thing off?
Are we still on?
I don't know, but I'll clip it and edit it. But I'm going to go ahead and sign out, and I'll give you a call and check in with you tomorrow.
Okay. I have a great idea about FIME that I want to talk to you about.
That's perfect timing. I'm glad we brought it up.
Okay, Sean.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too now.
Okay.